Idowu Taylor Street, Victoria Island, Lagos, or visit our website on www.lagoschamber.com to learn more. LCCI, giving your business a voice.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to welcome you to the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry Financial Services Group webinar tagged Addressing the Funding Challenges for Your Business. My name is Segun Alabi. I'm your anchor for this event. And on behalf of the President of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, I would like to welcome you warmly to this webinar. First, I would like to give some introductions or make some introductions. First, it's my pleasure to welcome the President of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Mrs. Toki Mabogunje, who is ably represented this afternoon by the Vice President of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, in the person of Mr. Gbenga Ismail. Good to have you, Vice President, sir.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, sir. Also, we have today our keynote speaker in the person of Mr. Ebenezer Onyagu, Group Managing Director, CEO, Zenith Bank PLC. He is ably represented this afternoon by Dr. Tope Fashoranti, Executive Director, Zenith Bank. Dr. Fashoranti, good to have you, sir.
Thank you very much and good afternoon. Welcome to the webinar.
Thank you for joining us, sir. Also, today we have an eminent moderator who will be in charge of the affairs of the deliberations hereafter. He's no other than Dr. Peter Bankole. He is the director of the Enterprise Development Center of the Pan-Atlantic University. Dr. Bankole, good to have you, sir.
Good afternoon, all, and nice to be here with you all.
Thank you, sir. Also, we have eminent personalities that will be part of the discussion at this webinar. We have our panelists, not in any particular order. We have Mr. Samson Aneke, Head, SME Banking, United Bank for Africa, PLC. Mr. Aneke, good to have you. You're welcome, sir.
Good afternoon, all. Good to have you all here. Pleased to be here too. Thank you.
Next, we have Miss Catherine Okang. Miss Catherine Okang is the Group Head, Managed SME for Fidelity Bank PLC. Good to have you, Catherine.
Good afternoon, all. I'm pleased to be here.
Next, we have one of our panelists who is here physically in his own right, in the person of Mr. Kola Adeleke. Mr. Kola Adeleke is the Executive Director of Corporate Banking, EcoBank Nigerian Limited. Good to have you, sir. Next, we have Mr. Bonaventure Okaimo, Chief Operating Officer, Development Bank of Nigeria. Good to have you, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
And also we have Mr. Olufumilayo Louis, Deputy General Manager and Group Head, Manufacturing FMCG and Telecoms, Sterling Bank PLC. Good to have you, sir. You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm sure we'll have an enlightening session. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you very much. Right about now, we need to move straight to the business of the day, and I'm pleased and honored to invite the co-host of this event in the person of Mr. Obinna Anyanwu, Chairman, Financial Services Group of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry and Country Director of the Commonwealth Enterprise and Investment Council. Mr. Obinna Anyanwu, you have the floor, sir, for your remarks.
Thank you, Dr. Alabi, for the introductions. The President, Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Mrs. Toki Mabogunje, ably represented by the Vice President, Mr. Gbenga Ismail. Our keynote speaker of today's event, Mr. Ebenezer Onyagu, Group Managing Director, CEO, Zenith Bank PLC, ably represented by Dr. Tope Fashoranti, Executive Director, Zenith Bank PLC. Our moderator, Mr. Peter Bankole, Director, Enterprise Development Center, Pan-Atlantic University. Our distinguished panelists, Mr. Kola Adeleke, Executive Director, Corporate Banking, EcoBank Nigeria Limited. Mr. Bonaventure Haimo, Chief Operating Officer, Development Bank of Nigeria PLC. Mrs. Catherine Okan, Group Head, Manager SME, Fidelity Bank PLC. Ms. Olufumila Louis, Group Head, FMCG, Manufacturing and Telecommunications, Sterling Bank PLC. Mr. Samson Aleke, Head SME Banking, United Bank for Africa PLC. Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, ESCO and Council members here present. The Director General, Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Dr. Muda Yusuf, gentlemen of the press, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I warmly welcome you all to the Financial Services Group, Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry web conference with the theme, Addressing the Funding Challenges for Your Business. The Financial Services Group is one of the 26 vibrant sectoral groups in the chamber with a wide network of professionals and experts across the financial sector. There seems to be a general consensus that inadequate funding, which inhibits scale-up, competitiveness, and sustainability of businesses in Nigeria, especially the micro, small, and medium enterprises, has been further compounded by the economic and financial disruptions occasioned by the COVID-19 pandemic. A 2018 study done by Enterprise Development Center of Pan-Atlantic University for Development Bank of Nigeria PLC, captioned Assessing the Financing Gaps for Nigerian MSMEs and Emerging Corporates, reveals that in the last 2 years, the rejection rate of MSME loan applications by commercial banks was 50%. This is also further corroborated by the experiences that some of our members have shared recently. This is why we have organized this conference at this auspicious time to shape the focus of the conversation on this important issue in order to provide practicable and innovative solutions to the challenges of funding and finance for businesses in Nigeria. We enjoin everyone to participate in this discussion and hope the session will be an eye-opener to more laudable opportunities for business financing and sustainability in Nigeria. I thank the President, the keynote speaker, our distinguished panelists, our moderator, the Director General, and our anchor for today's event. Thanks to my superb ESCO members for all, and the Financial Services Group members for all the hard work and your kind support. For non-members that have joined us today, thank you all. We encourage you to join the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry and give your business the advantage it needs to win. Once again, I welcome you all. Thank you and God bless.
Thank you very much, Chairman, Mr. Obinna, for that wonderful opening remarks. The other time, I omitted the introduction of the Director General. We have the Director General of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry here present, Dr. Muda Yusuf. DG, you're welcome. Good to have you. Okay. Okay, let's move on. Also, we have the next item on the program is the opening remarks by the President of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Mrs. Toki Mabogunje, who is ably represented this morning by the Vice President of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Mr. Gbenga Ismail. Over to you, sir, Vice President.
Good morning, everyone. You're all welcome to this occasion. Our keynote speaker, Mr. Ebenezer Onyegu, Group Managing Director, CEO, who today is represented by Dr. Temitope Fashoranti. Our moderator, Mr. Peter Bankole, Director of Enterprise Development Center, Pan-Atlantic University. Mr. Obinna Anyanwu, the Chairman of Financial Services Group, LCCI. Dr. Muda Yusuf, the Director General, LCCI. Our eminent panelists, officers, and members of council here present. Gentlemen of the press, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I am pleased to join the Chairman of the Financial Services Group, Mr. Obinna Anyanwu, in welcoming our distinguished keynote speaker, moderator, panelists, and esteemed participants to this webinar organized by the Financial Group of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry. I acknowledge the presence of the officers and council members of the Chamber. You are warmly welcomed. I would like to thank Mr. Ebenezer Onyegu, the Group Managing Director and the Chief Executive of Zenith Bank PLC, for accepting our invitation and agreeing to participate as a keynote speaker at this event. We'll also thank Dr. Temitope Fasoriti for stepping in also in this regard and agreeing to participate as a keynote speaker at this event, despite his busy schedules. We thank you so much, GMD, for your generosity. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the theme for this conference, Addressing the Funding Challenges for Your Business, seeks to deepen conversation on the various dimensions of the theme. The objective is to provide a veritable platform to facilitate discussion and interface between managers of loanable funds and business, especially the MSMEs, on the huge financing gaps that still exist in the economy, despite various intervention measures. Nigeria economy has exited from the COVID-19 induced economic recession, having recorded 0.11% growth rate in the gross domestic product in the fourth quarter of 2020. However, the exit from recession does not indicate an end to economic challenges confronting the Nigerian economy, which include rising consumer prices, weak employment level, lingering liquidity concerns in the foreign exchange market, depressed purchasing power, weak investor confidence, persisting external vulnerabilities and security concerns, among others. Moreover, the tightening global funding financial flows and investing environment could diminish the fundraising initiatives of the Nigerian businesses on a global space. Many small and medium enterprises continue to struggle with the risk assessment criteria of commercial banks and other lenders. Poor accounting records, failure to provide required documentations, inadequate collateral, weak governance structure of the business, cash flow rigidity, among others. The global consensus that SMEs are crucial to economic development continues to be at risk as difficult access to affordable finance and funding continues to impede the growth of the sector. Over the years, the federal government and the Central Bank of Nigeria have made appreciable efforts to stimulate inclusive finance and expand the funding ecosystem through creation of various credit schemes, loan structure, and intervention funds for critical sectors in the economy, especially the SME business category. In line with LCCI's mandate of promoting and protecting private enterprise to champion the development of a private sector-led economic development, this workshop seeks to provide practical solutions to these challenges. We have renowned speakers and professional bankers with wealth and decade of industry knowledge and experience to share with us here today their perspectives to help address issues of financing gaps in the economy. I hereby encourage all our guests and participants to listen carefully to the presentations and discussion in order to get maximum benefits from the workshop. I wish to congratulate Mr. Obin Anyanwu, the chairman and his EXCO, and all members of the Financial Services Group for successfully organizing these auspicious events. On behalf of the Council and entire membership of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, I thank you all for honoring our invitation and thank you for listening. Mrs. Toki Mabuguje, President, Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry. I thank you all and welcome you to this event.
Thank you very much. Vice President of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Mr. Gbenga Ismail, who has just read the speech of the President of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Thank you very much, sir. Next, we are moving very fast now. We have our keynote speech, keynote address, which will be delivered by the Group Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of Zenith Bank PLC, Mr. Ebenezer Onyegu, who is ably represented by an Executive Director with Zenith Bank in the person of Dr. Tope Fasharoti. Dr. Fasharoti, you have the floor, sir.
Good morning, and thank you very much. I have 20 minutes, so please permit me to stand on existing protocols. My name is Tope Fasharoti, and I'm here to represent my Group MD, Mr. Ebenezer Onyeagu. He's unavoidably absent today due to an impromptu engagement. He sends his apologies. And on his behalf, let me first of all start by expressing our delight for this invitation to be the keynote speaker at this webinar. I want to thank the leadership of the Chambers of Commerce of Lagos, LCCI, led by the DG, Dr. Muda Yusuf, and the organizers for putting together this webinar today. I want to also thank Mrs. Toki Mabokunje, the president of LCCI, and the VP, Benga Ismail. Thank you very much. Now, LCCI have played a very major role in advancing the interests of its members, and you've been actively involved in advocacy and shaping the discourse on policies that affect the business environment. You've continued to provoke meaningful conversations in a bid to ensure that Nigerian businesses continue to thrive. And for this, I want to thank you very much. The topic today, addressing funding challenges for your businesses, is a topic that is indeed very essential to the success of businesses and for the shared economic prosperity. And I'm confident that some of the thoughts that I will share today would enable members to overcome their funding challenges and effectively leverage the funding opportunities that's available to grow their various businesses. Let me share my screen to make it a lot easier. That will make me also go a lot faster. I hope I have the permission to share screen. So here we go. Okay. Let me run back. All right, thank you very much. I hope you can see my screen. Okay, so let me start with the outline. I try to rush us through the introduction. We look at the challenges of Nigerian businesses, the sources of funding, then why businesses are unable to access bank loans. We look at some of the bank's credit products. Even though Zenith Bank's product is also homogeneous, it runs across most banks. We basically sell the same products. Then we'll look at some of the available CBN funding, and I will conclude. Let's start with the overview. Now, the small and medium enterprise sector is the backbone of major developed economies. And in Nigeria, we see that SMEs contribute 48% of the national GDP. They account for 96% of businesses and 84% of employment. And according to statistics from the National Bureau of Statistics, we see that they also account for 50% of industrial jobs and 90% of the manufacturing sector in terms of numbers of enterprises. And from SMEDEN, a national survey that was done in 2017, there are an estimated 41.5 million micro and small and medium enterprises in Nigeria. Interestingly, 10% of these are in Lagos. Okay, now what are the challenges that we can say affects the Nigerian businesses? Now, according to FSS, 2020 SME reports, there are about 4 major groupings. There are more than these, but we just, for sake of time, we try to summarize this into these 4. The first is the business environment. It's rather unfriendly. We know that the most critical infrastructures that is needed to drive the economy is conspicuously absent. Business environment is characterized by uncertainties. We know that some are obvious, like the power supply is a bit poor, roads are not very good, policies are sometimes unstable. And then we see that insecurity is unabated, especially in the north. We've seen how that has impacted on food prices, okay, because the farmers cannot go out to farm. And that has, of course, also impacted inflation. We've seen multiple taxation. I can go on and on. But basically, these factors have made the business environment being unfriendly. Then we'll look at poor funding. We'll be talking about poor funding today, so let me not spend more time on that. Let's go to the low managerial skills. Low managerial skills. The entrepreneurs and the employees, they're not well equipped with the right managerial skills, to run a successful business. Trainings are usually on the job, and where trainings are available, they consider expensive, so they don't go for trainings, to build their skills. They will look at the lack of modern technology. My chairman, Jim Ovia, in his best-selling book, Africa Arise, he said, look, if you don't make technology your friend, it will become your enemy. The world has changed. Businesses now are not done the way we know how they used to be done. The pandemic have further accelerated this process. Sales are moved online. Marketing is done on social media. Meetings are virtual. Payment systems have changed. And how many people come to the banks today to come and collect cash? Because they do their transactions on their phones. But sadly, we've not seen a lot of our businessmen or SMEs. They've not been able to align with this new normal. They've not been able to adapt. So they lack the basic training to understand, the new age as we see it. So these are the factors that, mitigates their ability, to run their businesses successfully. And from Statista, a report in February 2021, we see that funding is very key. Number one worry for businesses in Nigeria due to the corona is liquidity. That's the availability of cash to operate the business. And from World Bank study, we see that 15 out of 100 for ease of getting credit is our score. That is very low compared to other third world countries. It is very low. So we know that there's a problem here. There's a challenge in this regard. What are the sources of business? Let me just run through that very quickly. Owners' equity. That's funding businesses from your savings, your personal savings, or your family and friends, okay? Two questions comes up here. The issue here is that, first of all, how much do you have saved up for the business? Secondly, from what you have saved, how much are you willing to risk into the business? Because there's always the risk that your capital, can evaporate if things don't go correctly. That's owner's equity, very important. Private equity, it is composed of funds, where the funds and investors invest directly into the private company, okay? Then we have the venture capital. That is where you see venture capitalists, usually professionals, they invest huge sums into startups or to expand existing businesses, that have tremendous growth potentials and traction. A lot of the companies we see in the world, innovative companies, actually, they were started by venture capital. Facebook, Spotify, Airbnb, they all started by venture capital, venture capitalists. Then the capital market, that's the obvious one. You can raise funds, at the capital market in exchange for proportionate ownership of or stake in a company in form of shares. And of course, you're paid dividend and you're not required to pay interest. You share the profit by paying dividend. And then we have the debts, so that the bonds, the loans from banks and other financial institutions. We see the investment funds from government agencies like CBN, or intervention fund rather, from government agencies like CBN, the BOI, Nexim. They all play a very major role in providing cheap lending, to the SMEs and other companies. Now, there are other sources for funding businesses, of course, but the focus is usually on banks. And we see that banks play a very major role, a critical role in financial intermediation in any economy. And when this is done properly, banks, of course, they make profit. But when it's not effectively managed, the result is bad loans and losses. And that's why, let me say this very clearly, that's why banks are very shrewd. Banks are very conservative in lending. Banks are guided by regulations and core lending principles. In fact, I can say that banking, along with aviation, they're one of the most regulated industries all over the world. And that's why you see people feel that banks don't want to give out loans, but banks must, we are highly regulated. We don't want to have bad loans. And that's why we are very careful and we're guided by some core principles. We're not donor agencies. We're not into charity. Okay, so we are very shrewd. Let me take you through some of the core lending principles that guide banks, because I think it's very important for us to know this. Some of these things are things we've always known anyway, but it's important for me to just to discuss this. And we'll talk about the 5 C's of credit. Usually this is a system that is used to gauge, to gauge the credit worthiness of potential borrowers, and then it tries to weigh the characteristics of the borrower, and to determine, or to estimate the chances of defaults, and consequently, what is the risk of financial loss. So these are very important, and every SME should know this, okay? Because you can also assess yourself. You can gauge yourself using these, these 5 C's of credit, which we all know. The first is character, of course. Character refers to what? That's the credit history of the borrower who wants to borrow the funds. It gives a lot of information on your track record. It speaks of integrity. Can you be trusted? Okay, and we have credit bureaus all over in Nigeria now that can tell us your borrowing reputation, your borrowing history. So usually banks check that. Okay. Number 2 is capacity. Capacity measures the ability of a customer to repay a loan. So we're looking at your liquidity, you're looking at your cash flow. We're looking at if your debts fall due, what's the capacity to pay? And this is a major determinant of the amount of loans to avail a company. And of course, the issue of the debt to income ratio comes up. Okay, so capacity tries to look at, how well you can repay your loan when you borrow. Capital refers to funds available to the customer. How much are you committing to the business? Banks wants to see how much are you going to commit, to the business. For example, if you want to take a mortgage loan and you're putting down 40% or 50%, the more money you avail, of course, the easier it is to get approval and to receive the mortgage, because it gives more comfort to the banks. Collateral is an obvious one. It's an asset that banks, use as security for the loan. Of course, whether it's equitable mortgage or debenture or legal mortgage, it gives the banks or the lenders the assurance that in case of default, there's a fallback. Okay, they can get something, to repossess. They can repossess the collateral. And of course, we have conditions, also very important. That specifies how does the borrower, how can you use the loan? Okay, that's condition. Look at the purpose of the loan, the amount involved, the interest rates, the fees to be charged. Now, this also influences, how lending is done. Okay. Often offers can be given to a borrower and it can be withdrawn because conditions are not met. So it's also very important. And let me say one thing very quickly. I do know that a lot has evolved in the banking industry. The banking industry have changed over the years. We've seen digital revolutions, we've seen disruptions, but these 5 credits have not changed. They're sacrosanct in banks' lending decisions. They have not changed, they stay the same. And that's why I want to take us back also to a very important creed. That's the Bankers' Creed of 1863. Now, this was in December 1863 that the newly appointed US Comptroller of the Currency, and what he later became the US Secretary of the Treasury, he wrote a letter to American banks or banking institutions. And I put some of some of them include what I put up here. It's more than this, it's a longer letter. That also have not changed. So you can see that the basic principles of lending, they refuse to change. Times might change. Disruptions might come, technology, but this stays the same. Let's look at some of them. You can see that let no loans be made that are not secured beyond the reasonable contingencies. Give facilities only to legitimate and prudent transactions. So transactions are very key. Distribute your loans rather than concentrate them in a few hands. If you doubt the propriety of discounting an offering, give the bank the benefit of doubt and decline it. And if you have reasons to distrust the integrity of a customer, close his account. That takes us back to the first C of character. Close the account. Never deal with a rascal under the impression that you can prevent him from cheating you. Then, of course, the capital of a bank should be a reality. It should be owned by those who have money to lend and not borrowers. These haven't changed, as you can see. From 1863, they stay the same. Now, what are the other reasons why businesses are unable to access bank loans? Number one, you can see there again, is improper financial record. Improper financial record. Inadequate track record. You see, we see that a lot of SMEs, they have no financials. They don't have proper bookkeeping. Some collect cash from their sales, and from their sales, they use them to purchase raw materials or goods. They don't pass them through the banking system sometimes. And that can affect the accuracy of your records, okay? Then we see that sometimes turnover is understated for that reason. We see that's lack of accountability. We see poor governance, Poor governance is where you can see diversions of your collections, even the loan. Sometimes some customers divert the loans. The purpose of the loan is for A, they divert it to B, okay? And we see that sometimes, the funds are lost. They do that. Then we see that the inability to adapt to changes in the operating environment, that is very key. Very, very key. The example of Nokia, it holds important lessons for all of us. Nokia, we know, did not adapt, as the environment was changing, in the handheld telephone industries, okay? And of course, even in pandemic that we just saw, a lot of companies that don't have online presence, we saw them struggle for sales, okay? So there's a need for adaptation. Then we look at succession planning. Some of the SMEs, they lack that. Okay, there's a one-man company. They don't have people that work with them that can, take over the company if anything happens. And then we see that sometimes there are no commitment to train and empower staff to acquire relevant skills. I think I already mentioned that. Then we see poor understanding of the dynamics of the business. For instance, we see digital disruption. We see exchange rate devaluation risk. These are things that we can say it always affects access to bank loans. Now, what are the available credits or or credit products that's available to SMEs? These are very homogeneous to all the banks. I'm just using Zenith Bank as example, but all the banks, I know some of my colleagues are also here, we offer the same products. Overdraft, I think that's pretty straightforward. That's you allow the account holder to withdraw money, beyond what they have in their account, okay? And of course, the interest is, is charged on the amount that is overdrawn, and is calculated on a daily basis. Then a term loan is a credit that is available to finance specific projects, okay, or capital expansions. It's for a specific tenor, and it's also charged on the total facility, and is calculated on a monthly basis. We have leases. I think these are obvious products. That's a contractual agreement between a lessee and a lessor, okay, and it guarantees both parties, okay. Then the LPO financing allows customers to finance their purchase orders, okay. When you have a contract, you want to finance it, you can approach the bank, and upon verifying the PO, then of course the bank will avail you the facility. We have import finance facilities, okay. That's a credit that's available for you to import raw materials or finished good or equipment. Is available as various products as unconfirmed LCs, deferred LCs, standby LCs. That's a guarantee to the supplier, or irrevocable LCs. We have bonds and guarantees. These are instruments, that give security, to, someone that gives out a contract, okay? It's a contractual obligation, and it guarantees that those obligations will be met. So if I avail you money, advance payment to do a contract for me, you're sure that my guarantee to you will, make the contractor, to be bound by that contract. It is bound to the contract, okay? This a lot of KDs of of corporates use this also to get products from the majors. Export finance facility, this is availed, of course, to export agri materials, agri produces, and commodities to international markets. Is available pre-shipment or post-shipment. We have invoice discounting. These are where jobs have been executed already, and it's confirmed, the invoices are confirmed, you can discount it, and maybe 80% of it or 70% of it can be discounted, and same can be, used, to fund other transactions. So it secures, is a loan that is secured against your outstanding invoices, okay? For us in Zenith, we also continue to make a lot of efforts to bridge the gap in the credit access, to corporates and SMEs. We see that we do a lot, especially in that regard. We have a package, for example, we call it Z Women Business Package. Okay, that we avail about maximum of 10 million limits to women, especially at single-digit interest rate. I think in 2020 alone, we supported women businesses with facilities and loans totaling over 4 billion just for women. And this we continue to do across our various economic sectors of SMEs that want to avail, that want to borrow from us. Now let's go to CBN funding. CBN has played a massive role also in making funds available at single digits. We must commend the efforts of the central bank. Of course, we also have the BOI, Nexim. They're playing a major role in this regard. And I want to appeal to all of us. Let us understand, the activities they cover, the sectors they cover, and for us to assess, these loans. The first of them, as you can see on the screen, is the Micro, Small and Medium Enterprise Development Fund. That's the MSMEDF. The global amount is 220 billion, and the single obligor limit is 50 million. That's the maximum that can be given. And the activities they covered are all stated there: agricultural, value chain, manufacturing, the cottage industries, hotels and schools, restaurants. I mean, they cover basically every space that the SMEs can play. How do you get this? Apply through a commercial bank. Okay, submit your documents and your MEMAT and your business plan, and then of course they will take a risk assessment of that, your submission, and of course on your behalf they will approach the central bank. Agric and Small and Medium Enterprise Investment Scheme, that's a popular one. AXMIS, 10 million is the limit also. It covers agric and agro-allied processing, real sector, in manufacturing, petrochemicals, mining, service industry, also hospitality, the healthcare, media, advertising. These are very broad products. The same thing also, you can also assess that through your commercial banks. We have the CIFI, that's the Creative Industry Financing Initiative, another very relevant product of funding by CBN to the entertainment industry. So we look at software development, movie production, movie distribution, fashion, music. There's a lot you can also assess in this regard. You can see the limits for the various single obligor limits for the various lines of the CIFI. Then we have the Health Sector Intervention Fund. That, of course, is available for pharmaceutical drugs, equipment, hospitals, and all that. The term loan is about 2 billion maximum, and the working capital is 500 million. These loans are all available. Please, our job is to bring it to your awareness. Banks, their doors are open, to receive your applications, and we're willing to support you as much as possible. So in conclusion, I only have 20 minutes, I'll round off. What are the things that will boost your access, to credit from a bank? Number one, be conversant with the 5 credits. Character is very important. It's very key. You can assess yourself before you even come to the banks, okay? You know what the banks are looking out for, so you can test your eligibility for the loan before you even come to the banks. Number 2, you must have a business plan, okay? In addition to that, you must have a succession plan. Number 3, you must know the types of funding that is available to businesses in your sector. That's why I took time to reel out all the various sectors that you can get cheap funding. And when I say cheap funding, that at single-digit funding, less than 10%. These funds are available. We are on a daily basis approving these funds for our customers, and so are other banks. So these are real. Now, business owners should be, they should consciously keep and update your financial records regularly. That is very important. Banks deal on records. They want to see your transactions with the bank you're dealing with, or it could be other banks. They want to see your statement to be sure that your capacity and what you can do. Also, it's important that you help your bankers to understand the business. Sometimes bankers don't understand the business or your sector as much as you do. So take time to meet with them, understand the business, and to explore the options that they can provide to support your business. Okay? Then, of course, let's make every effort to service your existing loan obligations. This is very important. This is very important. If you don't service your existing loan obligations, then you have already completely ruled yourself out in getting further loans. You recall that recently, last year, CBN, the central bank, they introduced the global standing instruction that can watch list chronic debtors or defaulters in the Nigerian banking system. So if you go into that list, that's it, you can't get a loan. And if your loan goes bad or things are a bit shaky, sometimes it's not your fault. Sometimes the economy, for example, we saw what the COVID, brought. A lot of companies have to restructure. So banks are very, very attentive to you. Stick with your bank. Work out a remediation plan. Work out a restructuring plan. Don't run away from your loans, okay? This digital era, we will always locate you. Your BVN, we have them. So these are the things that I know CBN has done to make the Nigerian banking system safer, even for lenders. So I want to appeal to all of us that, please, if you have issues with your loan, let's sit down together and discuss it, okay? We know that, eventually things have picked up and then your turnover will come back and we can restructure, okay? So at this point, let me stop here. And I want to say thank you to the organizers again for this opportunity to share with you our thoughts, in respect of SME lending. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tokwe Fashoranti. What a wonderful presentation. I know that our participants are willing and ready to engage you further and other panelists on this subject matter. Once again, thank you very much, sir. And at this point, it's good for me to introduce the moderator of the panel discussion, and is no other than the eminent Dr. Peter Bankole. Dr. Peter Bankole, as I said earlier on, is the director of the Enterprise Development Center of the Pan-Atlantic University. Doctor, over to you, sir.
Good afternoon once again, and thank you for a wonderful keynote speech, which has been presented to us by Tokwe. And indeed, I must recognize the fact that despite the fact that the CEO of Zenith is traveling at this time, I cited him already listening into this conversation. That shows that he's extremely keyed in into what we are doing today. So Ebenezer, I want to say thank you. I will not disturb you at this time. I will allow you to still be enjoying, in quotes, this presentation. So what we're going to do very quickly is to take some intervention from the eminent panelists. We have 5 of them with us. We have agreed on an order. So I will be asking, I will be starting, of course, with Samson Aneke to head out quickly to give us a few comments around what the keynote speaker said, but more importantly, their own intervention at UBA. So over to you, Samson.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, the chairman, the moderator, keynote speaker, and my colleagues. And most importantly, the participants, the business owners, who are the reasons why we're here today. So I will stand on existing protocol because I have just 5 minutes to speak. I must commend the keynote speaker for excellent rendering of his presentation slides to us. And he touched on very key issues that we need to dissect further and, and speak to it, because that's the reason why we're here. Before I pick a few things I want to talk about from his presentation, let me paint a little picture so that we know how bad the situation is, because here we are going to also work out with solutions. I like to be part of solutions and not just part of the problem. Okay, so if you look at African economy in general, so that we know that it's also beyond Nigeria. If you look at African economy in general today, you will see that SME as far back as 2010, was contributing about 50% of Africa, that's GDP, as far back as 2010. Today, it has risen to about 70% of Africa GDP. Now, African leaders are struggling to create massive employment. And from the initiatives, the expectation is that SME will produce about 400 million jobs. 400 million, that's massive. Some of these multinationals put together cannot create that kind of job. So if you come back home, Nigeria, you'll find out today that SME provides 84% of our total labor workforce, SME. So this market that is this huge, this interesting, that is doing this much, is the market that is also most neglected when it comes to funding. So when the chairman was making his opening remark, he mentioned something and I penciled it down. He said rejection rate from the work they did with Lagos Business School. He said the rejection rate for SME loan is 50%. That is critical. Now, not only that, if you check on the other side, on the flip side, if you check the people we give loan, the people that we give loan from deposit money banks today is actually just 5% of that market. So it's a market that is very important, very key to our sustainability, very key to our future, yet is market that we have not done well with. So when the keynote speaker was speaking, he mentioned about 5 challenges. I won't repeat it, but I will just pick 2 things there. He mentioned the unfriendly business environment, but there are 2 that struck to me, which is the second thing he mentioned and the last one. The second one is, he said, poor funding. And the last one is a shortage of funds. Well, they are in the same family. So I would like to come from that angle. Why the poor funding? Why? 2 things will be responsible because we have 2 players. We have the business owners that are running their business. We have the people that can lend and activate activities in that market. So it means that on these 2 sides of the divide, we have not done well. The bankers have not done well with this market as much as the market have not helped themselves. Okay? And that's why I love this forum organized by LCCI, because this is the way to find the pathway how we can heal the market. Now, why will I say that the bankers have not done well? When we want to lend today, let me start on the part of the banker. So I'm a banker, so that you know that we have seen it, and then UBA have taken measure to structure our business modalities today for us to address and cost transformation in this market. And that's why I can speak boldly the way I'm talking. Now, what we used to do here is when we want to lend to this market, we wear our, what should be corporate banking cap and assessing SME market. We forget that a lot of the business here are not structured. If you check that Medan report, as mentioned by the keynote speaker, that will have about 41.5 million businesses in this market, players in this market. That's correct. Now check how many of them are even registered. How many of them are even registered? Because a lot of them still carry out businesses in their personal names. So how many are registered? Very few of them. So you find out that if we wear the cap of commercial banking and corporate banking and come here to lend, you will never lend there because you won't see those things that you will need. You won't see his great-grandfather as collateral and 140% of his dynasty for you. It will not exist. It does not exist. Okay. So collateral becomes very big issue in that market. So, okay. So, as I highlight this problem, what are we doing even as a bank, UBA, to say we are taking a different look at this market. We want to provide solution to this market. We want to be part of those that will change that story. So we have made this pillar, we have made this a pillar that stands on its own today in UBA, so that you don't mix it up with corporate banking, commercial banking. We will love to groom people to move from this market and over to the other side. But then we want to focus on the market. So number one thing we are doing today is to follow the market, follow the business, do what we call more of cash flow lending. I don't need your big house in everywhere, because you may not even have it as a starter. To give me in Abuja or in Lagos, because we normally say only in the cities. Where if you have that big house we want in the city and you have it in Abuja, you may not need even 10 million, 5 million that you're coming to take. So we look after your cash flow lending. How is your business moving? What's the flow of transactions in your business? Understand the transaction dynamics and lend based on the capacity of what you can do.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Aneke. You have done like 7 minutes, and I need to move to the other participants.
Oh, thank you.
I know when we are passionate about SMEs, it's tough to control. But please, I will call quickly now on Bonaventure, the CEO of DBN. Please, let's keep within 5 minutes. We want to have brevity. So as much as possible, we want to have everybody go around quickly. Bonaventure, please.
Thank you, Dr. Peter. I'm going to be very fast. Initially, I had some slides I was going to share, but I won't do that anymore. My thanks to the keynote speaker who took us through a very elaborate journey. Today, we are talking about access to the challenges facing accessing funding by Nigerian MSMEs. So the first key question is that, do we have enough money to give to Nigerian MSMEs? PwC put out there in their survey that the funding gap for Nigerian MSMEs today is about 617.3 billion naira. So no matter what the federal government will do, no matter the amount of intervention on a yearly basis, they are not going to be able to provide 617 billion to take care of all the MSMEs in Nigeria. So that's one of the major reasons why Development Bank of Nigeria was set up. So what are we doing? Development Bank was set up. Our vision is to be the primary development finance institution that is promoting growth and sustainability, while our mission is to facilitate sustainable socioeconomic development through the provision of finance to Nigerian underserved MSMEs through eligible financial intermediaries. So what do? One, we provide loans. These loans, we use it to kind of fund commercial microfinance bank liquidity so that they have enough funds to then on-lend to MSMEs. We support their liquidity requirements. Another thing we do is that we've all recognized the fact that, like what our keynote speaker, Dr. Temi Tokwe said earlier, was that in fact, all the problems he alluded to why the Nigerian MSMEs don't get funds from banks. Major things, corporate governance, poor financial record keeping and all of that. So what have we done? Part of our mandate is that of capacity building for Nigerian MSMEs. We have worked with the Lagos Business School Enterprise Development Center in the past, and we are still doing that to train Nigerian MSMEs. We've also came up and developed a app we call MSME Biz Aid that will help them to learn how to manage their finances so that they will make themselves beautiful enough for the Nigerian banks to see them as brides to be brought on board and given access to finance. Additionally, we are providing technical assistance to the Nigerian banks so that they will understand how to monitor, how to review MSME's risk. Currently, we have a collaboration with the Frankfurt School of Finance and Management. We are training 5 key Nigerian banks as we speak. This technical assistance program is supposed to run for almost 2 years. Additionally, what have we been doing in terms of our lending? We have over 40 participating financial institutions that are currently on our books. So the Nigerian MSMEs, all they need to do is to go to these PFIs and see how they can raise monies from them. It's a very easy journey. We've tried to put all of that in the paper. What we do is that to end up our mandate, because we know that we deal with the banks, we've come up with some products that will help Nigerian banks. So we have a product we call the long-term finance product. So our loans are up to 10 years with moratorium of up to 18 months. We've come up with what we call a DBM finance to finance product. So for the PFIs that are not able to get to us directly, they can come through their own banks and we still fund them to then finance their own MSMEs as well. We've come up with the non-interest banking product for people who are into non-interest banking. We also come up with an interest drawback program that will encourage Nigerian banks, incentivize them to deal more with the MSMEs. So there are some areas we want them to focus on. And once they get through, we'll be able to then give them some kind of interest drawback to encourage them. Like I said earlier, we have a couple of PFIs. All you need to do is to visit your bank will check, and then once they are good with you, they send to us and we approve, and the funds are released to that bank within 48 hours. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Bonaventure. Right on spot, 5 minutes. I'm sorry I'm having to be a very serious timekeeper, but I'm going to be picking one or two things that are very critical. You have said, based on what the keynote speaker said, 220 billion, 50 million cap on the MSMDF funding alone. And the interesting thing is that you said this intervention can never solve all the problems. And I did a quick calculation. Even if we give each person 10 million, not even the 50 million cap, 10 million, the 220 billion will only service 22,000 MSMEs. Yet, according to the report, we have over 41 million. Correct. That is a major thing that we need to reflect on. But quickly, we are going to move to Catherine from Fidelity. Catherine, over to you, please. Catherine, you'll need to open your mic. Thank you.
It's open. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Chairman, keynote speaker, moderator, general audience, and of course, not forgetting my fellow panelists. I have just 5 minutes, so I will just go straight to it, right? Before I go on, I want to acknowledge the very robust presentation of the keynote speaker. So I will not want to dwell much on this. I just want to speak on the challenges and what we at Fidelity are doing to support SMEs in this period. Now, the Apex Bank in Nigeria today has continued to emphasize the need to support and develop the real sector economy. And SMEs, as stated in this presentation of the keynote speaker, are the major contributors to the economy. They account for most of the businesses, contribute to job creations, and of course, the GDP of the economy. So at Fidelity Bank, what we have to continue to do is to support SMEs and try to address the identified challenges. First of all, we support SMEs in formalizing and scaling up their businesses, right? So what we do is we try to move from the micro to the small. We graduate them from micro to small, and then to up to sometimes we get them to the structured ones, right? This we do through a lot of capacity building. We have also provided funding that's tailor-made for these businesses to meet them at whatever stage they are in their business cycle, right? Now we have several suited products, SMEs, whether they are the micro, whether they are small or medium. Now we have our cash flow lendings, which speak to SMEs at this stage. We also have our structured facilities for professionals and those in specialized sectors. We are also in partnership with our development finance partners, where we provide loans for those in the medium and small corporates. So we do all that to support the MSMEs, right? Now, we know what happened during COVID, and a lot of businesses went under. Now, at this period, we did a lot to support SMEs, right? Now, we had interest rate rebates. We had we provided a moratorium for them to help them scale through this period. So in all that we made sure that these challenges were identified and we took care of all those things. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Catherine. I think one thing that is very obvious is from your intervention is that one, we as MSMEs need to stay very close to our bankers. And I can see that in the chat as well, where somebody is saying we don't even know about all of these opportunities. So yes, the bankers are talking, the bankers are maybe listening, but also the MSMEs must be closer to their bankers as well. So let's move quickly now to Sterling Bank. Ayo, Louis, you have the floor.
Good afternoon, everyone. Let me quickly go. I might not even take 5 minutes. First of all, thanks to the keynote speaker, Dr. Fashion, for a well-presented paper. If you listen,
Ayo, your audio is going on and off. Your audio is going on.
Can you hear me now?
Very well.
Is that better now? Okay, thank you, Dr. Fashion, for a well-presented and researched paper. If you listen to Dr. Fashion, and we've gone through what the other panelists have said, certain things are clear. You realize that there's a gap. Funding is a finite resource in this market. In any market, it's a finite resource. I think what should be important to the participants here, the SMEs here, and the MSMEs here is how do we improve our outcomes? So the resource is finite, and the outcomes, how to improve your outcomes would be what is important. If we go back to that paper, he spoke about certain principles of credit. They don't change whether we're accessing money from a development finance institution or from a commercial bank. They don't change. So it's how we improve our outcomes that we should pay attention to as we go on today. I would advise that there's certain things in what he said. He spoke about record keeping. It's rather important. You know your business more than us, okay? But from your records, the way you keep your records, it will improve your outcomes. Credit checks are very important in this market. And those credit checks run across a whole lot of things. You'll be surprised that even the courier companies do it to check on people. When we run a credit check on anyone, it not only checks in banks, it goes across to other users. So it's important that your record is without blemish. I'm trying to speak about things that will improve your outcomes. Where would you be technology-wise? Do you use technology today? Do you use it for record keeping? He spoke about making sales and cash not going into the bank, cash going back out. It depresses your volumes. You may not know, but it does depress your volumes. You feel it's a faster method. That means you don't keep proper records. Your record keeping is a bit all over the map. It's important. Those things are very important. It's also important for businesses to separate themselves, the owners of the business, to separate themselves from the business. You run the business and you run your personal self. Totally separate. Those are part of the things that are important. It's also important in record keeping for you to maintain a proper book of accounts. So it's not only about your sales. You must submit yourself to some level of audit. Those things are important to improve your outcomes with the banks. Now, for us as an institution, my colleagues have gone across the various products, including the people from, including the gentleman from the Development Finance Institution. It is important, if you come into any of our locations, we can handhold you into methods of solving these problems that will improve your outcomes so that you have access to this finite resource. This resource will never be enough for everybody. So what is important is for those who want to have access to it to improve their outcomes to get access. Thank you very much.
Fantastic, Ayo, and you're right, spot on, under 5 minutes. You know, you said so many things, but I'm only going to pick one, and that's the issue of technology. During the COVID period, we did a study around how COVID was affecting the MSMEs. And guess what? 93% of them had their revenue, their income really declined. But 7% said that their revenue skyrocketed. Now, that was very interesting because in a pandemic situation, how come they were making more money? So we dug deeper and we found out that one of the major reasons was because of technology. They had prepared, and the keynote speaker also mentioned, they had prepared themselves across their value chain. They were using technology and they sold like mad. So this is very interesting, and we'll be having more conversation around that. Let me call on our last panelist from EcoBank, Kola Adeleke. You have the floor now.
Thank you so much, and good afternoon, everyone. Let me join my colleagues to appreciate Dr. Fasonati for that beautiful presentation. And just to speak to a few of the issues that were highlighted, I think Andy spoke to the funding gap for Nigerian MSMEs, and I want to echo the fact that based on the SME finance source, we are looking at about $150 billion as a funding gap for the micro, small, and medium-scale enterprises in Nigeria, which obviously highlights the importance that all of us, all the key stakeholders have to, the importance we all have to attach to supporting this businesses in Nigeria. And mainly, the reasons for the funding gap were mainly on the issues around risk profile, the bankability of these SMEs, and of course, the issue around availability of capital. But when we come to EcoBank, I would like to state that EcoBank Nigeria, we are part of a group that has the largest footprint across Africa. And we have several partners across Africa that supports our the SME initiatives. And I would just also like to recognize this opportunity, recognize the Central Bank of Nigeria for all the initiatives, as well as our partnership with the Development Bank of Nigeria, who gave us 50 billion naira this year to finance the operators' SMEs. So what are those products that we have? We have what we call EcoBank business loans, and this is a merchant advice for SMEs using digital collection channels. We also use this. SMEs can also use these loans to finance their inventory, either their key distributors to the big names like Lafarge or Coca-Cola. It's also available for shop owners, and then for financing invoice or purchase orders, as well as asset finance. We also have a solution for the SMEs, which we target EcoBank Trade Solutions, mainly for financing, import financing, and issuance of bonds and guarantees to support the SMEs across Nigeria. So what are the business and trade loans available to EcoBank SMEs? Number one is the merchant advance for SMEs. We have limits of about 100 million naira per SME. We have the key distributors. There's no limit. It's determined. It depends on the nature of the transaction. We have shop owners, and then of course asset financing is also available for SMEs banking with EcoBank. So I would like to stop here because of time. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Kola. That is very brief and precise. There's so many questions, both in the chat box and in the Q&A, and I'm just tempted to just dive in straight away. I'm going to start. I'm coming back to, hello, thank you very much. Yeah, thank you very much, Kola. Okay, so I'm going to dive in very quickly. There are quite a lot of questions, some of them specific to some banks, but I'm going to start with Samson, who seems to have quite a number of comments here. And the first question I'm going to ask him, sorry, I see Mr. Gbenga hand up. Please go ahead, Gbenga.
Mr. Moderator, just to signify once the question I asked, I just have comments and observations to the panelists.
Please go ahead.
Well, okay, thank you very much. The main observation, and which is one fundamental part that I would like all to take on, is a comment that was made, I think, the cash flow funding, that moving away from real asset collateral, we have to really study how this can happen and how our SMEs can understand building cash flows and using this as a form of security rather than all the physical assets. I want to highlight on that was mentioned. And also one of the aspects which I think Dr. Fashoranti talked about, accessing alternative funds through the banks. Again, a lot of people don't understand how to even engage with banks, how to talk to them. So if they can do more to help our SMEs go through this process, it's something we can take from here to another level. We don't understand that language. And then I think it was Mr. Ayo Lewis that said record keeping. Effectively, again, it's another process for Nigerian businesses. We have no records. So we have to do a special training to let people understand the records that they have to keep, why they have to keep it. And especially one other thing that was mentioned in the succession planning. You can keep record. What about your successor? Does he understand that period? So these are the things that I picked up that we should build on. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Gbenga. Actually, I was going to start around those issues, but let me go back maybe to our keynote speaker. There is a fundamental issue he raised. First of all, he recognized the fact that MSMEs are the engine of growth. He also agreed that indeed the banks are there to be able to make things happen within the economy. Now, a few questions that have popped up. One, if we so recognize these facts, how come we are not growing and grooming the MSMEs to be able to be bankable, also that we can lend to them? That's one. And secondly, how come the banks are declaring humongous profits and competing amongst themselves, yet this so-called engine growth are not being assisted to be able to add to the economy? Remember, 48% contribution to GDP. So maybe you take that first, Tokwe, then I go to the panelists. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me say this, that first of all, see, you need to understand the composition of banks' profitability. Okay, it comes from a lot of sources, derivatives, the net interest margin, and a lot of others. So most people they've not taken time to break it down to understand that, look, those profit that you call humongous really represent a lot of activities that banks carry out, so it's good to have that clarity. But back to your first question, I can tell you that, look, banks are doing a lot. And you heard that a lot of my colleagues that spoke, they were very specific on everything they are doing, to fund that sector. Like we said, it's a very unstructured sector, so we have to be very careful. I can tell you that, look, in Zenith, like some of my other colleagues spoke, we're doing a lot of even loans, that are not a lot of non-collateralized loans. just looking at your cash flow, which is why we spoke about record keeping. It is very important. Number two, look at business plan. If you look at NISAL, they have something called the Simplified Credit Business Plan that try to, present your company to the banks or the SME to the bank in a very structured way, where we can see your cash flow. We can see what is coming in, we can see what is going out. And based on that, I can tell you that, look, if you look at our financial, you will see that our SME loans to total loans, it went up even last year. So all of us are coming more into this space. We're coming to appreciate more what the SMEs are doing from all the statistics we've seen. And the numbers are going up, not only for Zenith, all the other banks. Our numbers on retail loans, our numbers on the SME loans, they're massive. In fact, just this year alone, we started what we call, an SME offerings, where we have three structures. We have the SME Basic, SME Premium, and SME Ultra, offering loans of various limits, driven by the annual turnover, driven by the minimum balance, and the other statistics that we can see. We're leveraging on partnerships, some of them with Google, some of them with Microsoft, just for us to get more more understanding into how the businesses are done and to offer them more loans. We're giving them a lot of free marketing toolkits. Okay, if you can go to our website, SME offering, you will see what we're doing there. I mentioned the Z-Woman. We're giving you free e-commerce sites for you to even advertise your products. And I think, like I said, we're also leveraging on technology to bring them on board, okay, and make them, get more access, to various finances.
Okay, thank you very much. I think the issue of technology is very key. And if there is one message the MSMEs must leave here with, is the fact that they cannot run away. I mean, they cannot do but embrace technology. First of all, we are huge in terms of numbers. And then for it to make it more sensible for the bankers, they have to embrace technology. Thank you very much. Let me now go back to Samson. There have been a lot of comments with what you have said, and I want you to drill down a little bit more. The corporate banking mindset cannot be used in lending to MSMEs. That has gone down very well with the responses I'm seeing in the chat box. What do you really mean by that? And how can the rest of us begin to engage so that together we can lend more to this sector? Over to you, Samson.
Okay, thank you very much. So let me even start by saying those few things we used to demand in the corporate banking segment, which we carry over to SME, which will not work. For instance, I talked about demanding your collateral in terms of fixed assets, the houses, and so on. These are, and then some of them we say, oh, bring your audited report. How can they have audited report? How can they go and hire Pricewaterhouse to come and audit their business at that level? They are not, they are not corporate bank, they are not commercial banking, and these are what put off for them. Now, think of when they even give you that house. What happens? The stamping alone, the registrations you have to do to give it a legal coloration will almost, the fees will almost be choking for someone in that market. So you don't really need that, So now, so when I talk about, my colleague has mentioned about having sound business plan. Yes, you have to have sound business plan because I want to understand what you do and how you do it. And I said, follow the money, follow the funds flow. So I see how you obtain your goods from your suppliers. I see your off-takers and how they take money from you. I also see, because there's also supplier credit, and there's also this, you also give credit to some people that buy from you. I'd like to know your repayment period. How long do they owe you before they pay? When I take the universe of those things, I should be able to advise you, and I should be able to even work with you to say, this is the amount you really need for your business. Because if you also lend someone beyond what he needs, some of them, because of record keeping, might use part of it to go and take chieftaincy title in the village. Then you start having issues of repayment. But these are some of the free financial advisory services that your banker should give you. It's a right, we should give you that. One of the things you said, there's a first question you asked. I think either my colleague, really, because he had other questions he answered, that wasn't properly, he didn't focus on it. That question was, how do we make them bankable? You asked that question. You said, how do we groom them? How come that bankers, we know all this, how can't we help them to make them bankable? So that was our starting point. The first thing we did as a bank was to enthrone a business registration desk. When we get these guys that do business in their names, ask them, they will tell you, oh, if you register business, oh, government will say you pay tax. No, when you tell them the benefits, and they see the benefits is beyond that tax they will pay, you guide them and help them to register. Our business registration desk is not a profit center, because you register your business at a cost lower than what you can get it out there if you have to go out and get a lawyer to register. So we teach them how to become bankable by getting registered, the advantages and what you do for you, and so on and so forth.
Okay.
That's what we do. So,
all right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think what I'm taking away from here is that the bankers are doing more. They are willing to do even much more. But then we need to get the message out there to our MSMEs. Let me come quickly to Catherine, because you mentioned this around cash flow lending. What do we need to do as MSMEs to be able to qualify for this type of cash flow lending so that at the same time, it does not affect you as a bank? Like the keynote speaker said, you are one of the two most regulated in the industry, yourself and the airline. So what must you do so that we don't fall out of that regulation and at the same time, we are able to meet this issue of lending to MSMEs? Over to you, Catherine.
Hello. First of all,
go ahead.
as an SME, you need to register your business, right? You keep good records of your account. This record of account is what we use in assessing your business, right? Because this facility, our cash flow lending is usually for micro or small businesses that are into trading. So usually once you have a regular cash flow and a quick short asset conversion or cash conversion cycle, let me call it cash conversion cycle, then we'll look at your records and then we give you loans that are not that are uncollateralized, that's clean lending. So basically, you're expected to just keep good financial records so we can access your statements. It's pretty easy for micro businesses to access this.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm just seeing one comment here, and it's from Sumola about the issue of training, and that perhaps some of the banks are asking them to pay 10 to 25,000 naira for training before they can access. But I am aware that almost all of us are into training one way or the other. And I would like Bonaventure to please address this issue because from his position, it's like as bankers, we're basically deceiving people to do training. And even after the training, they still don't get access to this funding. So Bonaventure, please, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Doc. So really, the idea of training is one of the key areas that we are very interested in. We need to, as a group, agree that we have to do this, and after doing that, we provide the access to finance. At my own end, we've trained more than 300 MSMEs at our own cost. That is, like you were saying, somebody said they should pay 25,000. Nobody does that, yeah. We train them, we issue them with certificates, and then we come into some form of alliances. We encourage banks. At the end of this training session, we bring in banks together to say, okay, look at the people we've trained. I'm sure you'll find some of them attractive. I will tell you that sometime last year, we had a strategic alliance with one of the top banks in Nigeria. We came up with a women development entrepreneurship program, kind of. And at the end of the day, this was supported by some form of funding to that bank. And as we speak today, more than 5,000 women have accessed financing from that bank at very good sustainable rates. So additionally, remember what I said, that we've developed a mobile banking, not a mobile banking app, let me call it capacity development app that we call MSME Aid, that the MSMEs can download on their own and they get access to free training and all of that. We have plans this year to train over 1,000 MSMEs with different kind of tools and all of that and partnership. So I guess that is something that we're all looking at and it's really good, and we should encourage every other bank to join, and let's see how we can do. Thank you.
I think that's the message. When we all do a little bit from our end and add it together, that means that more people can get access. I'm going to come back to Ayo very quickly on the issue raised by Bosun. There are three things in the report that we did for DBN around access to funding. One is tenure, interest rate, and collateral. We seem to have addressed the other two. The issue of tenure is what Bosun is raising, that why is it so short-term in the way in which we provide funding to MSMEs? Before they could blink, the tenure is over. So you want to address that quickly?
Let me try and address. So essentially, most of our facilities are structured around what it is. If it's a trade, obviously the facility will be short-term. If it's an asset finance, the facility will be tenured rather than for a year, for as much time as your cash flow would allow you to pay back in a disciplined manner. And I've chosen my words carefully because that can go beyond a year to maybe 3 to 4 years, depending on the asset, what it is used for, and what your cash flow will accommodate. But I want to disabuse our minds that all our facilities are short-term. I can reel out some of those facilities available to you here that we provide for small and medium-scale enterprises. And you see and I'll talk about the tenure so that we quickly move away from that. Overdrafts tend to be 1 year. We have both secured and unsecured overdrafts for small and medium-scale enterprises. And you recall I spoke about record keeping and cash flow, and my colleagues spoke about cash flow. For you to be able to qualify for the unsecured one, all we're looking at is your cash flow. Once you're able to determine your cash flow, you will qualify up to a certain limit. We have business support facilities also for small and medium-scale enterprises. This is not a 1-year facility. This is between 18 and 24 months. It's primarily for asset finance. It's available unsecured and is also available secured. So that we give facilities for short term, no. I think we also need to do more to communicate to our clients, our customers, our prospects, the various facilities, the various things that are available to them in the banks. It's not just short term facilities.
Okay, thank you very much, Ayo. There are quite a number of.
Can I
go ahead,
interject?
go ahead.
I would like to, because when we talk about, because I remember what Mr. Ismail said about record keeping, and I want to address it. And I will use an example to address it so that it will help the participants to improve their outcomes. So I gave a facility out, I think 15 years, odd years ago, and it's about record keeping. The client approached the institution, he had no collateral. However, he wanted a significant amount of money that was going to transform his business. So we asked him, who do you sell to? How much is your turnover? All the questions we asked him, he sat at his desktop. This is not a very educated gentleman. He sat at his desk and produced it from his desktop. That was about 15 years ago. What did he generate from his desktop? Invoices for all his sales and receipts. Straight away we could see, he gave us that data for 12 months. Straight away we could see what his total sales were. We could see what his receipts were. We could see if there was any gap. From his invoices also, we could see the size of his market, and we could see that, yes, if we give him this facility, despite the fact that it is unsecured, he has a market that he will sell these products to. He's still our customer till today. That was about 15 years ago, and his business is quite different from what it was then. But what broke the ice for that gentleman was his record keeping. Records were kept in that manner.
Thank you very much, Ayo. And honestly speaking, I cannot overemphasize the issue of record keeping. One of my members got access to finance, and when I spoke with the funder, I said, what TIP did for you? He said, when we checked all the records, we saw one receipt, developmental fee of 100 Naira, and he kept it. It's like, man, if this guy can keep record of 100 Naira, this is the kind of guy we want to speak to. Okay, let me take a final one to a caller at EcoBank. You talked about your footprints across the continent, and now ACTFA is on. People are talking in the chat box around export, and they are not able to get finance for export. What are you doing in your bank? I know a lot of the other bankers can answer the same, but for time, I'm going to just direct this one to you. What is your bank doing around this? Thank you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that question. Before I attend to it, let me first of all say that for the SMEs, what part of the missing link is the distance between the operators in the SME space and the banks. Usually they see us banks as too big and, in quotes, too intimidating to be approached. I will just like to say that, look, you know, we are just like any player in the SME space, and they should please feel free to approach any of us, walk to any of our branches, or pick their phones and call us, and we'll be there. But talking to the issue of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement is indeed a great opportunity for Nigerian businesses, especially looking at the size of our economy and the vibrancy of the spirit, the entrepreneurial spirit that we have in Nigeria compared to our colleagues across the continent. So we need to take advantage of this. And as EcoBank, this is an area that we are very, very familiar with. Part of the things that anyone who wants to go into, take advantage of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement needs to consider are issues around the legal regulatory issues. And we are, like I said earlier on, we are present in 33 African countries. And we have what we call one bank concept, where we have, all at one technology linking all the affiliates across the continent together. And we know most of the guys across Africa. So who needs sorghum in Nairobi, who needs cashew in Rwanda, etc. So we are available to provide information around where do you want to go to, depending on what the nature of your product and the nature of your business or the service that you want to provide. And in addition to that, we can help you in financing the transactions, your export transactions, knowing fully well that whoever you are likely to supply to in Africa is most likely to be an EcoBank client. We link clients together. We link importers in Cameroon to exporters in Nigeria. We link importers in Nigeria to exporters in Congo DR, and so on and so forth. So these are things that we have available. We help you to manage the risk or minimize the risk relating to inter-regional trade. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kola, and indeed, thank you so much to all our panelists and our keynote speaker. It's been wonderful moderating this panel. I think one thing I'm taking away is that it's not a case of bankers versus MSMEs. We're in this together, because if we co-create this together, the Nigerian economy will be better for it. And I want to thank the LCCI, on behalf of the over 200 participants that I'm seeing online, for offering us this platform to have this conversation. This type of conversation is very important so that we as MSMEs will learn and will be able to adapt. And on the flip side, also we as bankers will also be able to understand the MSMEs. And together, we will make that desired impact. So I'm going to hand over back to our MC for the closing formalities. Thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity.
Thank you very much, Dr. Peter Bankole, and also all our panelists today for a wonderful job that you all have done this day. Well, I will not be moving the vote of thanks. I will not be giving the closing remarks. That job will be done by no other than the Director General of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, in the person of Dr. Muda Yusuf. DG, sir, over to you. And as he will be coming up to move the vote of thanks and give us the closing remarks, we will be launching a sort of feedback on the event. Let us know how you've been able to get some takeaways from the event today, and let's have a feedback on the event as a whole. So over to you, DG, sir.
Thank you very much, Segun, for being a wonderful MC. Let me express our very profound appreciation on behalf of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry to our keynote speaker, the MD of Zenith Bank, here ably represented by Dr. Temitope Fasuranti, and our very able panelists. I will thank you very much for the very deep and robust perspectives that you have shared with us this afternoon. I must also express our appreciation to our able moderator, Dr. Peter Bankole. It's always there for us. We appreciate you very much. Of course, the consensus is very clear in this conversation. It is clear that funding SMEs and addressing the challenges of funding SMEs is work in progress. We have been on this for several years, but we still notice that we still have significant financing gaps. One of the panelists put it at about 600 billion, another put it at about 150 billion US dollars. So it's an indication that we still have a whole lot of work to do, especially if we are really committed to the issue of job creation and poverty reduction. I think this is the way to go. And nothing underscores this financing gap more than what we find outside of the conventional commercial banks. For many of the microfinance banks today, many of them charge as high as 5% flat per month. For SMEs and micro enterprises, some of them charge as high as 70% per month. If you annualize that, you are talking about 60% per annum or even 70% per annum. And yet people take this credit. So it's an indication that there is a whole lot that needs to be done to fill this gap. Of course, we have been told that the challenges are internal. Some of the constraints to funding, some of them are internal to the SMEs themselves. Some of them, like the operating environment, are external to them. For those that are internal, it is clear for us that we need to continue to enlighten and sensitize small businesses. We need to continue to sensitize them and also enlighten them on what needs to be done for them to make themselves attractive and to improve their access to funding. For the external variables, those of us in the advocacy space, we have a whole lot of work to do to ensure that we improve the external environment. for SMEs to be able to access credit. There is also a major challenge that we have been struggling with in the Chamber of Commerce and generally in the business community. It's about de-risking the SME space, because there is also this perception generally that the SME space is a very risky space. So we need to get policy interventions. Some of that is already happening, like the credit bureau and all of that, but I think we can do a lot more to de-risk the SME space and to make it much better or easier for the banks to be able to support SMEs. Then clearly, it is also very evident that the banks and other financial institutions need to be a lot more innovative and creative in linking up with the SMEs and in helping to reduce these funding gaps. I think we still have a whole lot of work to do. And the point was also made about the issue of perception of the banks by SMEs and micro enterprises. If you talk to many micro enterprises, once you mention a bank, for some reason, they just have the perception that it's a no-go area as far as credit is concerned. So we need to work a lot more on this perception. One of the panelists talked about some of these MSMEs feeling intimidated either by the structure of the banking offices or the powerful ties and suits that the bankers are wearing and all of that. We need to do a lot of work around perception. But generally, it is clear that it is work in progress, and the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry will continue to collaborate with the banking community to be able to ensure that we bring a lot more improvements to this space, to also be able to address the issue of these huge funding gaps. So once again, I'd like to express our profound appreciation to the MD CEO of Zenith Bank and Dr. Temitope that has represented him here, and all our very able panelists. We thank you all very much. Our appreciation also goes to the President of the Chamber, Mrs. Toki Mabogunje, who is ably represented by Mr. Gbenga Ismail. I must also express our appreciation to the Chairman of the Financial Services Group, Mr. Obinna Anyanwu, for putting this together. I will thank you very much for all the efforts and commitment that you have put into this. We appreciate it. And let me appreciate our Vice President in charge of membership and welfare, Mrs. Mojisola Bakare, is also on the call. We appreciate it. So on that note, I want to thank all our participants for being here. And we have noted some of the questions that were not answered. Whatever we can do about them, we will do to get back to you. And let me also especially thank Mr. Dr. Peter Bankole for effectively and properly anchoring the panel session. Thank you very much, all of you, and have a blessed day. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director General of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Dr. Muda Yusuf, for moving the vote of thanks and giving us your perspective on the subject matter. And then this is a clarion call for all our partners, the banks, all the banks that are represented on the platform today to either revalidate their membership with us on the platform at the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, or for those who have not joined, to please come. Our doors are open and we welcome partnership and collaborations with all of you. Once again, on behalf of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry and the President, Mrs. Toki Mabogunje, we want to thank every one of you for participating at this webinar, and also to all our participants online via YouTube and other channels. We want to say thank you for participating, and we have come to the end of the webinar. Thank you and God bless you. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Very
Thank
much.
you.
Enjoy the rest of the day, everyone. Bye.
As a corporate entity in today's fast-paced and ever-changing environment, being part of a good network of business professionals and thought leaders is all you need to take your business to the next level. At the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, LCCI, we guarantee the promotion of trade, sound business ethic, and public policy advocacy that will help your business succeed. Founded in 1888 and with over 2,500 corporate members, we offer the best networking platform for business and profitability. Come talk to us today on how to become a member of the foremost Chamber of Commerce and Industry in Nigeria and Sub-Saharan Africa. For more information, please visit our corporate headquarters at Commerce House, 1 Idowu Taylor Street, Victoria Island, Lagos, or visit our website on www.lagoschamber.com to learn more. LCCI, giving your business a voice.